Welcome back to another completely useless video, or if you're new, welcome to 17 of the most useless minutes of your life. The World Test Championship has undoubtedly put a bit of spark back into Test cricket. Yet, Test cricket still isn't thriving. Now, every cricket fan and his nan has their own opinion on how the WTC can be improved. So, why should my opinions be heeded? They probably shouldn't. But I like letting people know my thoughts, so sadly, you all have to suffer and listen to me drone on. Before I get into the specifics, there's a few things about my cricketing views that should probably be made known. Firstly, I don't gatekeep cricket. If anything, I'm an anti-gatekeeper. I will do everything in my power to get you to become a cricket fan whether you like it or not. Secondly, my priority is the development of cricket globally, and not helping line the pockets of rich boards. So, sadly, even if the ICC stumble across this video, they probably won't listen as I'm trying to invest in smaller cricket nations. Money which could instead be given to the big ones. Thirdly, I believe sport should be a meritocracy. If you do well, then you should be rewarded. And just because you were good at one point doesn't mean you should always keep the privileges of what came with that. So with that out of the way, what are our limitations of the current WTC format? The first one is the number of games that the big three play in contrast to everyone else. In the 23-25 season, South Africa played 12 matches in 2 years. 6 matches a year. They are only getting 2-match series. England, on the other hand, played 22, nearly double. As well as a different number of matches, we also need to look at who each team are playing. India, England, and Australia played each other 10 times, around half their games. South Africa didn't play England or Australia at all. Doesn't seem like an equal footing league to me. The other issue is that it doesn't allow other teams to even try to get into the WTC system. If Afghanistan become Test cricket powerhouses in the upcoming years, there's no way for them to play in the WTC unless ICC starts adding teams on an ad hoc basis. There's no criteria. So, how do we fix these problems? Honestly, it seems pretty easy to me. The first problem can be solved by simply having exclusively 3-match series in the WTC. I can't imagine any fans will have a problem with this. Most Test cricket fans despise 2-match series, so making sure every series is at least 3 games shouldn't be a problem. The only time this could be an issue is something like the Ashes. The Ashes is meant to be a 5-match series. Nobody wants to see a 3-match Ashes series. With this format, additional optional tests can be played. The Ashes can still be 5 tests, but only the first 3 will count for WTC points. The other 2 will just be for the urn. So, that's one problem solved about an unequal amount of games. Now, how do we ensure it becomes a more equitable league? This is arguably an even more simple solution. Make sure everyone plays everyone. Truly revolutionary thinking by me, if I may say so. Don't think that's ever been implemented before in any league across any sport. Now, the problem becomes fitting all these matches into an already pretty full calendar. 3 matches against 8 opponents is 24 matches in 2 years. 12 a year. That's quite a lot. Now, there are 2 ways we can combat this. Either we can make a WTC cycle every 3 years, which means 8 matches a year, a far more manageable number, or we can reduce the number of teams. If the WTC has 7 teams in it, for example, then that's only 9 matches a year. For the sake of argument, let's say the top 7 WTC teams in this cycle stay in the league. Suddenly, Pakistan and West Indies are no longer in the WTC. I can't imagine those boards will be too happy about that, and I have 2 words. Skill issue. Just because you were good at cricket once doesn't mean you should always be at the top level. Could you imagine if Hungary were automatically invited to every FIFA World Cup because of their 1950s success? Or if Sunderland were guaranteed a place in the Premier League every year? I should probably schedule a psych evaluation just for entertaining the idea. So, why is it so normalised in cricket? But this leads us nicely onto our third point. This will allow other nations to play in the WTC, and we can even implement a system for promotion and relegation. So, we now have a second WTC tier for the 5 teams that didn't make it into the top tier, that is, West Indies and Pakistan, and the other 3 test nations. And if other teams want to start playing test cricket, let's say Netherlands and Nepal, for example, we can add them to this. And from here, it makes perfect sense to add a third tier if enough teams want to play. So, for argument's sake, let's say that these are our 3 tiers for the WTC. Each team plays the other teams in their division in a 3-match series. I do think that at current time, maybe the third tier should consist of 4-day tests, but if there's enough improvement, which hopefully there will be, I don't see any reason that they shouldn't become 5-day tests eventually. When it comes to promotion and relegation, given it's only 7 teams in each league, there should be 1 team going up and 1 going down. A very sensible way of doing things is having the top team go up and the bottom team go down. Makes sense to me. But another possibility is the 2 top teams in each tier have a single match playoff, rather like the WTC final, and the winner goes up. Could add a bit of excitement. So, what might this look like? Maybe a WTC cycle ends like this. So now Sri Lanka and New Zealand play in the WTC final, Pakistan and Netherlands play for promotion into Tier 1, and whoever wins takes England's place. Likewise, USA and Oman have a match to get promoted into Tier 2, and the winner will take the place of the West Indies. Let's say Pakistan and Oman win, then the next cycle's leagues would look like this. Notice any problems here? I think I see 2. And that is glossing over the potential issue that England will accept their relegation with grace. Somehow I see that being very unlikely. This does mean that England and Australia won't get to play each other in this WTC cycle. So, no Ashes. However, as mentioned before, teams are allowed to schedule extra optional matches. They just don't count for WTC points. So if England and Australia are in the same division, they play a 5-match series where only the first 3 count for WTC points. But here, they can still schedule a 5-match series, just not for any WTC points. If they go through with that, that takes both teams up to 23 matches in the 2-year cycle. It's a lot, but about what they're used to. Of course, some people might be outraged that you've now got England having to play test cricket against Nepal and Oman. But what are my 2 words going to be? Say it with me, folks. Skill issue. If England played so poorly that they deserved to get demoted to Tier 2, and Oman played well enough that they deserved to get promoted into it, then what's the problem? Likewise, the West Indies would only have themselves to blame for being in Tier 3. The other problem is now India and Pakistan are in the same tier, and the rules stipulate that they have to play against each other. I'm afraid I can't solve this. This comes down to the boards. I think there are 2 solutions. Either they play in a neutral venue, which I see as very doubtful, or the team that refuses to travel forfeits all their points. This also leads us nicely onto home and away tests. How do we decide who's playing where? One solution might be to have every team play each other home and away, but to do this would probably have to make the cycle 4 years long to get all the games in. I think 4 years is too long for a cycle though. Yes, I know the ODI World Cup is every 4 years, but with the tier system, waiting 4 years to get promoted if you're good enough feels like a long time. There is of course the issue that the Ashes would have to be played every 4 years, but as I said, you can schedule extra matches in if you want, so that's not really an issue. My solution is that depending on where you finished last season, that determines who you play at home and who you play away, and can be seen from this table here, where the row determines your team and the column is your opponent. So, in this example, whoever team 1 is would play at home against team 2. So, if these were the final standings in the next cycle, the home and away games would look like this. This isn't a perfect solution. Let's say, for example, South Africa keep finishing first. They've somehow broken their curse and they've become so good they keep winning. And now let's also say New Zealand just keep constantly coming in third. This means that every time New Zealand will be touring South Africa, and there won't ever be a South Africa tour to New Zealand, at least for WTC points. Of course, 2 tours in a row is quite possible, and even 3 might occur every now and then. But anything more than 4 is a very unlikely scenario. And the only people it really impacts are Australia and England, as they won't want 2 consecutive Ashes series in the same country. This has happened once in the 20th century, where England hosted in 1975 and 77, so it shouldn't be a huge issue. And remember, teams can still organise independent tours. One important thing to discuss is the finances. Test cricket is all bilateral now, which means that it's the individual boards who get all the money for hosting a series. If we make this an official ICC tournament, then ICC can sell the rights to all matches to a specific provider. If Sky says, we'll show the Ashes, but we're not showing Papua New Guinea versus Canada, tough. Either you take all the matches or none of them. This will allow so much more money to be generated through Test cricket. Providers are already ripping off boards when it comes to Test cricket. Test cricket is a dream for broadcasters. 4 or 5 day matches, 7 hours a day, people tuning in on and off, an ad break at the end of each over. Test cricket should be worth billions, with a B. What should ICC do with all this money, though? Well, I think the best idea is to give it to me for giving them such great ideas. However, failing that, the most important thing is that the money is pooled. We cannot keep the system where India take a massive chunk of the pie and leave crumbs for all the smaller nations. The big problem with smaller boards playing Test cricket is that it's quite expensive for them. And unless they're playing a team like India, they struggle to make money. For a country like even Ireland, their board doesn't even have access to the ground. They have to rent the use from the council. So the ICC should first ensure that they pay out everyone, the ground staff, the umpires, all that sort of thing, to ensure that finances aren't the only thing hindering a team from playing Test cricket. The leftover money should then be distributed to the boards depending on success. The specifics of this aren't exactly important, but I tinkered around with it for fun, and I think this is the best solution. Each tier will get a proportion of the money. Obviously, the higher tiers will get more money, rather like the English football system. I dilly-dallied over how much each league should get. Should it be 50-30-20, 60-25-15? But I think the way to make the most boards happy would be a 75-25 split, at least at the moment, given how dominant the top nations are compared to the lesser nations. Then, depending on where you finish in your tier, you get a proportion of the money that was allocated. So I think first place should get 20%, second place 17.5%, third and fourth should both get 15%, 12.5% for fifth place, and 10% for each of sixth and seventh. These numbers ensure that no board is getting massively more than anyone else, yet the better you do, the more money you will get. You might think that 5% is quite low for a tier 3 team, especially considering 6th place only gets 10% of that 5%. After all, this is what the distribution of overall funding would look like. But remember what I said about every single match being bundled in the broadcast deal? This should be worth billions. Once the ICC covers all the match costs, it wouldn't be out of the question to assume they have, say, $1 billion left to give to the teams. They'll likely have more, but let's say $1 billion just as an example. This means that the winners will see $150 million into their pockets, but teams in Tier 3 will still be making $5 to $10 million. For small developing nations, that is a large sum of money that they can invest. And if they invest wisely and keep getting better, then they can get promoted and make even more money. Even for teams like Australia and England, they're making just as much, if not more money from this system. The only board that might not be too happy is India. And you know what? Deal with it. The goal should be developing cricket globally. India makes all their money from IPL anyway. You can afford to lose a few million on Test cricket. It won't change things for you. But it will make things so much better for everyone else. Again, these are numbers I thought seemed sensible. ICC can work out the specifics, and the teams that play in the playoff matches or the finals can keep the money between them. So, those are my ideas for bettering the World Test Championship, and Test cricket as a whole. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, or if you didn't, hopefully you at least managed to kill a few minutes and think about cricket for a bit. Feel free to leave any thoughts in the comments, and you can subscribe if you never want to miss a useless video. Bye all!